Time now for our Picks panel, joined as always by Picks 11 political reporter Henry Rosoff. And this week we have Jamie Deline, WTEN Capitol reporter, and Jeff Coltin, the City Hall bureau chief for City and State New York. Good to have all three of you here.
Good morning.
So let's get to this, right? As we just spoke with Councilman Keith Powers, last week Mayor Adams unveiled his city budget proposal totaling $106 billion. A lot of it going towards the migrant crisis, city schools, NYPD. Now, he did roll back some of those 4% cuts to agencies that he floated earlier this month, but the negotiating season, well, that is upon us. How fun. So, Henry, let's begin with you, right? And what you're hearing about these negotiations. Keith said he would not vote on it if it were presented to him today.
Well, I would say that what you're hearing is some deep skepticism that the city can achieve these efficiencies that the mayor likes to call them efficiencies, but really he's kind of closing open employment positions. And so there's some deep skepticism here among council members and frankly in the community that you can achieve the same level of service as the mayor is promising while still not fully staffing to the levels pre-pandemic, say the Department of Education or the Sanitation Department or even the Fire Department. So there's some skepticism there, and I think people really need to feel out and find if they can find a middle ground there, because the mayor's right, doesn't have the money, but can it be achieved this way? I know council members in the community are a little skeptical.
Yeah, and so, Jeff, there's the Progressive Caucus as well. Now, Keith Powers isn't part of that caucus, but they are now out there saying the mayor didn't meet with them. And where exactly do they fall on this issue? Because we all know what happened last year, right? The council members felt like they were kind of had the wool pull over their eyes with some of the things that were in the budget. So where do we go from here?
Well, I think, like you said, it just shows that actually a large majority of the council is united against this. It's not just the progressives. It's also Speaker Adrienne Adams and her inner circle, like
against the
Majority
cuts?
Leader Keith Powers. Not just against the cuts, but against the entire budget framework that the mayor is presenting in this executive budget. So we have about 2 months. And of course, a major issue here is not just the budget cuts. It's about not being able to hire people. It's not that there's specific services that are being cut in the budget. A lot of the issue here is that services that are supposed to be rendered to city residents aren't being rendered because there's not enough people working for the city.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point here. And it was very interesting what Councilman Powers said, too, that this is the first time working on this budget being presented where the state budget wasn't really given to them way in advance. So, Jamie, it took them over a month, but here we are. Lawmakers in Albany finally have this tentative agreement on the state budget, right? Minimum wage going up, MTA fare hike will be reduced, some changes to bail reform. But let's break this down first and foremost, Jamie. This is a framework, so not a done deal, right?
Exactly. So what happens next is that the lawmakers are going to have the bills printed. And once the bills get printed, then they can start debating and then voting on it. But ultimately, until those votes are done, there's really no concrete agreement just yet.
But Jamie, the governor had to give up a lot.
She did. So housing is out of the budget. That's something that she wanted. She said later down the road, that could be something that they look back and they do. But she did get changes to bail reform. She wanted the least restrictive means standard to be taken out, and that's exactly what she got.
So let me thank you for that. And Henry, let me bring you in here because bail reform was a huge, huge issue, giving these judges more discretion. The governor, how did that end up playing out?
Well, I would say this whole thing looks like a pretty giant concession to moderate Democrats on Long Island and in the Hudson Valley, for instance. And I say that because bail reform stayed in some form or fashion, and her housing plan, very controversial in the suburbs, were out. So that really seems to be the force driving Democratic caucus right now in Albany. I will also point you in the direction of the MTA. A lot of movement there. The governor wanted nearly $500 million from the city. She's getting a lot less than that, and there's some free bus lanes. There's some money to reduce the amount that a swipe will cost you. There's a lot of things New Yorkers are going to notice when they take the subway and ride the buses that are notable here.
Yeah, that's if they can find the alerts, by the way, because Twitter stopped using MTA alerts. But, Jeff, back to the bail reform thing. The DAs here, they put out a statement very quickly saying this is actually not a good compromise, right?
Yeah, the DAs, too, are looking for... we use bail reform as kind of a shorthand. There's also discovery reform, talking about getting defendants all the information before trial. There's a lot of complex issues here, and the DAs, as you said, are not happy. They wanted more. So it seems to me like a lot of people are coming out of this unhappy. Even the Republicans are coming out saying, even though they've been pushing for bail reform for years, they're saying this isn't nearly enough. This is not going to do a thing. So it's interesting to see who's coming out of this actually happy. I don't know if I found anybody yet.
Jamie, last word.
Yeah, so we'll wait and see when the budget will totally be finalized, but we're expecting possibly next week.
All right, so
Mayor Adams' budget director's happy. The city can start making decisions. So there you go.
Right, okay, well, it's going to be a whole roller coaster ride as
said.
negotiations go through. But let's talk about President Biden effectively soft launching his 2024 re-election campaign with a video posted on Twitter, which mostly focused on his pledge to fight back so-called MAGA extremists, aka the Trump wing of the Republican Party, right? But it seemed to lack any mention of policy or achievements of his own. So, Henry, let me get your thoughts on the video.
Well, I would say that aides for President Biden, as we've been pointing out his relatively low approval ratings, were say this is not an approval rating, this is a referendum, which is why it was all about, as he said, extreme MAGA Republicans, something I'll point out and highlight in that video, not mentioning any Republicans by name, but picturing the likes of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who hasn't even declared yet, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, not pictured former President Trump. Now, you can call that a jab, or you can call that, implied, considering the first frame of video was the January 6th insurrection, but it's very clear the president wants to make this a choice, not necessarily about his policies.
Yeah, and Jeff, Mayor Adams called out the administration saying that they are failing New York City. This is a failure. Do we think we're going to see Mayor Eric Adams supporting Biden moving forward in the campaign season?
Yeah, look, we saw the mayor's sharpest words yet saying that the White House and Biden specifically are not doing enough for New York City. And then he turns around and he says, Biden's great. I totally want him reelected. Absolutely. No question. And you know what? The mayor can do that because Biden is the only real Democratic serious candidate for president at this point. So you can criticize him while also being behind him.
Yeah. And Jamie, where do you think Governor Hochul stands on this?
Governor Hochul has already come out in support of President Biden.
There you go. All right, we're out of time here. Otherwise, I'd squeeze in the news about Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon, but that's a story for a different week because we are out of time. Jeff, Jamie, Henry, always good to have you here on the panel.
Thank you.